You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. You always thought that you were weak, but babe, you're wrong. Yeah, you better step into the light, just give it a try. Think that it's time you let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Go ahead and shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine. You shouldn't doubt yourself, 'cause you're a work of art. You should know that you are perfect with those flaws. Yeah, you better step into the light, just give it a try. Know that it's time you let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And because if you might mess it, you're stronger than the others think. And because if you might mess it, go ahead and shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine, shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine. Because if you might mess it up, you're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Shine, go ahead and shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine, shine, darling, go ahead and shine. No fear, 'cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to A Turn of Events, where we put a positive spin on the future of your business. I'm Annette Naif, the founder and creative director of Naif Productions. We're a strategic event production company based in New York City, but we do events all over the world. We do corporate, social, nonprofit, and weddings. Happy to help you in any way we can. I'm also a coach for wedding and event planners who are looking to start their own wedding and event planning business. Or for those of you who are struggling in your current business, please reach out. Happy to help you in any way as well. If you are a wedding and event planner and you're looking for a community of driven, creative, and passionate wedding and event planners, then you must join me in my Facebook group at Event Planner Society. We bring together wedding and event planners from all over the world to network, gain referrals, improve their mindset, and build their businesses. So, and I also do some unbelievable free training in there. So you must join us over there. Go to Event Planner Society, drop me a note, and let me know that you've joined. I can't wait to see you there. So my next guest is Doug C. Brown. He is the founder and CEO of Sales Strategies and a renowned sales revenue and profit growth expert. Over his career, Doug has founded or built 35 businesses plus businesses. That's incredible. One is enough for me, but collectively generating over 960 million in sales for himself and his clients. As the creator of a predictable, reliable, measurable, math-based model for sales revenue growth, he has helped businesses achieve remarkable outcomes, including raising close rates by 143%, and boosting product sales by over 4,150%. Additionally, he's created Vibitno, which is a platform that helps people stay in connection, recover lost relationships, and gain future sales and relationships through automated, personalized, relevant, and meaningful follow-up. So today we're going to talk about the strategy of follow-up, which is very, very important. If you're not doing follow-ups, I mean, if you work in the event business, you know that follow-up is like insane. So let's talk to Doug. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Annette, thanks so much for having me here. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, it's exciting. Follow-up is like such a nightmare. It feels like we're constantly following up. There's so many things in this event industry that happen. So how did you, first of all, let's talk about like, how did you come up with this? Why follow up? What's the story there?
Well, I actually lost $125,000 sale.
Yikes. That'll do it.
Right. So I, in between building all the businesses, at one period of my life, I decided I'll try a corporate job, and
I did that.
Yeah. And it was good. Well, I had it. Right.
Right.
But during that job, what happened was, my youngest daughter, actually, we went to Florida, and my oldest daughter. Yes. Yeah. We were actually in Boca. We went
nice.
to Boca.
Yes.
And my daughter was less than a year old, and she became not feeling well, while we were down there. So I called back to my office and I said, hey, we just took her to the emergency room. We can't fly for a couple of days. And long story short, I was told, don't worry about it. We'll cover your calls. We'll cover your emails. Now, I was the number one rep in that company out of almost 320 reps. So I was pretty busy. And I get back that third day and my voicemail is jammed full. My email is at capacity. And the manager who said they'd take care of it didn't take care of it personally, nor did they actually assign it to someone else.
Oh, boy.
And on one of those calls was 3 days in a row, which said, hey, Doug, where are you? I'm ready to buy. And I called Jerry up and said, Jerry, hey, sorry, here's what happened. He goes, oh, I'm sorry about your daughter. I said, Jerry, I'll be right over. He goes, Doug, you can, but we've already signed a deal.
Oh, gosh.
And I said, yeah. And I said, what happened? He said, well, the CEO told me get the deal done. He told me that about 5 days ago, and I had you in mind. But I didn't hear back from you or anybody. So in the meantime, your number one competitor had just called about 4 days ago, and I blew him off. But I called him back and we signed there, and it was a $125,000 deal. So in personal commission, that cost me $25,000. It cost me $4,000 to go to Florida. So essentially, my vacation cost me $29,000.
Oh boy!
And so, doing what sales reps do, we complain and get upset, and we figure out how to overcome it. So a friend of mine who was also number one in his other company, we got together at Panera Bread and we said, what's our biggest challenge? And it was follow-up. And so I said, all right, I'm never having that happen to me again. And I designed a follow-up system, which back then didn't have the technology. So I manually was doing it.
Oh boy. Yeah.
And that is, whether it's index cards or calendars or sticky notes or, a file of fax, roll it, whatever. Right. Back then, it was better than nothing.
Right.
Right. And so it really hit me when I closed I followed up with this company for 2 years straight, every single month, diligently. And they closed, and it was a tiny little name called NASCAR. Oh. And, so I was able to nail down NASCAR, and that relationship actually led me to some major universities through referrals. And I just realized that, well, this is a big problem for people, not just me. So we'll put something technologically together to make it easy for people and automate it. And if you forget about it, it'll actually do it for you or remind you to do it. And so that's what we put together. And then as I started putting that together, I realized that people don't know how to follow up. And so now we have to train them on what is follow-up supposed to be really like. And it's supposed to be personalized, meaningful, and relevant, but most people don't realize that.
Yes.
And timely, right? So
timely is everything. I get questions all the time from, because I coach wedding event planners, as I said, and they always are like, when do you stop? When do you all do all that? So we'll get into that, but it's great. So why is follow-up considered a critical component for achieving success in the event industry, or any industry for that matter? And what common pitfalls do event professionals typically encounter when neglecting this step? I have a lot to say too, but go ahead.
That's a loaded question. As you and I were talking, I literally was in the wedding business, the corporate business, right, in the entertainment side, and doing DJ work and actually helping coordinate with event planners some of the events. So I will say, all right, a lead comes in, let's say to an agency, if you're working through an agency, or into your own business,
right?
And what's the expected time to get back, right? So the first follow-up is critical, and the quicker you can do it, the better.
Right.
So it's clear in the data that if you follow up within 1 minute, or you follow up in 5 minutes, it is a 5x lower probability that you're actually going to get that deal. Because when they're calling in, for example, in the DJ business, when they used to call in, they would call into our companies or into the agencies that I represented myself with. And the agency would then immediately call me and say, hey, we got somebody. And I'd say, give me their phone number. And it didn't matter if I was in a meeting or whatever. I would break out of that meeting for just 2 minutes, and I would call the bride and the mother. And I would say, hi, this is Doug. And they'd go, wow, that was fast.
I know.
Right.
Right.
And I'd say, what do you mean? Aren't everybody else calling you back this fast?
Yeah.
And they would say, no. And I would say, well, I'm confused. This is your wedding, right? This is like one of the most important days that you're ever going to have in your life, correct? And the mother-in-law, she would be there on the phone, and they'd go, yeah. And I'd say, well, I'm really sorry that people don't care enough to actually call you back, but I do. So if you like this service now, wait till you hire me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I had over a 98% close ratio on those calls. And it was because I immediately got back to people. And if you don't get back quickly, follow-up is considered as a common courtesy.
Right.
So in an event business, I'm planning a corporate event, let's say, my reputation in my company is hinging on how great the success of this event goes. Mm-hmm. My job might be on the line depending on what kind of event it is. I'm going to take that very seriously. So I want somebody who's going to stay in touch. So the first thing is speed to contact, and just making it a common courtesy. Some of the pitfalls that they do after that is they don't make the follow-up meaningful, or they don't make it relevant. And here's the crazy part. It's not hard to do.
Right.
Right. So what's meaningful? It has to be meaningful to the person receiving it. So, and if you called into my event planning company and I got back to you and said, hey, Annette, thanks for calling. You know, our manufacturing equipment is really going to support you in your event planning. But you'd be like, what are you talking about if you didn't call me for manufacturing equipment, right?
Right.
So I cannot tell you how many times I get information sent to me that is not even relevant to the process. I have had people send, like when I was in the DJ business, I have had people literally tell me that people called upon them for their bar mitzvah when it was their wedding.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Yeah, it's not good.
Right. So mismatch is a big one. Number two is not even doing it.
Yeah.
Over half the people who have an initial conversation with someone don't follow up ever again. And if we, as let's say I'm in the event planning space, the wedding planning space, do you think folks that they're only calling you? Trust me, they're not.
Right.
When they used to call DJs, for example, they'd call 3 or 4 of them all at one time and say, I'm having a wedding, I'm having a wedding, I'm having a wedding. And all of these leads would go out. But by the time the other DJ companies actually got to them, I had already closed the deal.
Right.
And I had followed up, and we were already putting the process in place. So time is critical, relevance is critical, meaningful is critical, and personalized is absolutely critical. So like when you and I were talking, I learned that, you have a place in New York, you spend your time at the Jersey Shore, you're in Boca for the winter, right? That gives us all of, I mispronounced your first name when I asked you that. You gave me the pronunciation of it. We had a brief conversation. I learned so much, and I wrote it all down here, see? So when I now can follow up with Annette, I can refer to these things, and it makes it personalized.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you're dealing with events and you're dealing with wedding, especially weddings, right? I mean, some of these ladies have been dreaming about that perfect day since they were 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're dealing with all the stress and craziness. They want somebody who can relate to them on a personal level and what they're looking for, which makes it relevant and meaningful as well. So not following up at all. Statistics show that people it's crazy.
It is. It's crazy.
It really is. Statistics show that people stop following up after 4 tries. And the average person expects a minimum of 5 follow-ups, 3 phone calls in those follow-ups throughout the duration of an event. And if you're not doing it, it's basically saying, I don't care. This is my positioning. I don't care.
It blows my mind. But the biggest thing is I've gotten many jobs because I was really like the first one to respond, right? Because like you, I respond right away. I'm a psycho with the emails. I have no emails in my inbox. I'm one of those girls that don't have that. And I try to teach my team the same thing. But everybody has their own working style, but I don't have emails. It's because I need to I'm doing, 20 events a year or more, and then I have to keep up on what's going on. So that's my working style. But even I'm looking at social media a lot because I might be tagged in something that people are referring me to. And I want to be the first one to jump right in, happy to help you, and then immediately there's conversation happening. But, so even just in the work that we do, following up with vendors, following up with the venue. I mean, it's just nonstop. Unfortunately, those are the things that the client doesn't have to do. We've told, a lot of times we try to tell our client, yes, we keep them informed, like we're waiting to hear back from the hotel, just so they feel, because it could be a couple weeks before we get responses, and we've followed up 5 times. But the client doesn't know that. So we need to let them know that, we're waiting. And sometimes they're like, are they really difficult to work with? And I'm like, look, they're not difficult, but they're busy working on other events that are happening right now. Yours is in a year. They're not thinking about that right now, but we're planning. So, our follow-ups, we're insane with that. And, I've had many people say to me, when do we stop following up? And I stop following up when I get the no answer. I just keep going. If they keep responding and we haven't decided yet, we're still checking with the board because we do a lot of nonprofits, lots of different things, but I really keep going. I don't care if it's 10 times, and sometimes it has to be that. So, but yeah, the main thing here is to get an answer to them, respond to them as quickly as you can. And so many times I get the same thing, Doug. Wow, that was fast. Thank you for your quick response. Like I get that a lot. And so that's what you want. And that needs to be continued out throughout the time that you're working with them. It can't just be in the beginning and then you forget them and let them go. Like that doesn't, when you get the job, you have to continue that same customer service. So that's important.
Yeah. And I think, I always teach, what I call R-bar, always be building a relationship.
Yes.
Right? At all costs. And, even when you said, when you get a no, you keep going till you get a no. I will recommend that you then go from that into a different, always be building a relationship, because people don't necessarily do one event.
Right.
And then we continue to keep going. Right. So like, I remember this was crazy. This family had 5 daughters, and all 5 daughters wanted me for their DJ event, for their wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it's kind of weird. You know what I do? Like I do a set routine, and they're like, we just loved it. Right. And so, but you were caring, my family wants to see you again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there are reasons to continue beyond the no in building a relationship.
Yes.
But the challenge is it's super hard to do all that, because you've got another 20 people probably calling you and connecting with you in that.
Yeah.
And so what I recommend to people is that's why we built the tool.
Right.
Because the tool will then take and build a relationship over time with people. And it's doing it in a way that's not threatening. And, people don't want follow-up like, hey, you ready to buy now? Hey, you ready to buy now?
Right.
That type of that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for helpful, constructive, meaningful, relevant, personalized follow-up. And, if we think about this, Annette, we do this in personal relationships, especially when we're dating.
Right.
I mean, I can tell you from my point of view, how many things that I did to try to woo my special person in my life.
Right.
I was constantly calling her, sending cards, flowers,
That's nice.
whatever. Right. But that's to build the relationship.
Right.
And so once we got married, I still do those things.
That's good.
Right.
That's good.
Mama didn't raise a dumb boy when it comes to this one. Right. Because
that's good, Doug. Good.
We've got to keep
happy life. Right.
Exactly. And, and you brought up something really super, I think important for people to understand, that when people are saying things to you like, wow, you so quick to get back to me, I'm really grateful for this. That's building value.
Mm-hmm.
And people buy on value perception.
Mm-hmm.
And in the wedding business, so much people buy on not only the value they deem as a business return on investment, but it's really on a personal return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
So the business return on investment is, hey, are my people really going to have such a great time? The personal return on investment is, am I going to have a great time? Because I have talked to so many brides where they're like, I didn't even remember the day.
Right.
Right. And so it was like, yeah, we just dropped out $40,000, $50,000 on this wedding or whatever it was. And I didn't even remember the day. And so I always made it a point to make sure that the personal return on investment was, not only is this going to be your special day, but you're going to remember it, because I'm going to pull all of this stuff off you and coordinate with your event planner, coordinate with whoever's in the process. And the more we can convey value and lower the fear, the quicker they will buy and the more they will pay.
Right. So if I get them on the phone, normally everybody will take a call with me. So if someone reaches out to me, they take a call with me, we get a proposal to them, and then we present the proposal. So what we do is I will go back to anyone, which is pretty much everyone that I've talked to, unless I see that it's like, we're not a good fit, it will recommend someone else, because sometimes the budgets aren't the right or something's not right. And I'll know that right away before even talking to them. But we get them a proposal, and then I do go back to people who didn't hire us. I mean, I have a very high close rate as well.
I bet.
I've gotten it down over the many years of doing this. But there are some times that they've decided they're not going to do it till next year, or
Sure,
they're going to do it in-house, or, there are reasons that they don't hire us. There's some, but So I'll go back, like during COVID, that was a really big thing, was many of the people that do fundraisers and some that didn't hire us and all the ones that did, obviously our current clients, we would go back and talk to them about virtual events and how to take their fundraising event to a virtual event.
Sure.
So many of them hired us to do it because they didn't know what to do. So that worked out, and I would go back to my list of people. But you made a good point about, if there are some that I don't go back to, keeping track, there's so many, we get, over the years, I've had my business for 15 years, but I've been doing this for over 30. There are so many that I have reached out, and for whatever reason, they didn't hire us, or we didn't do a proposal with them or something. So it's a good thing that you have this follow-up system, because, I could easily put it on a Google Drive or something like that, but it's a good thing you're reminding me that I need to have an upgraded follow-up system for going back to people that maybe, that we didn't work with, which we have done, but it's not consistent. And so, but thoughtfulness is what you were talking about, I think is a good thing to talk about. Like, how do you make it just like, what I think is important is being top of mind. So many of the vendors who reach out to me and are constantly like saying, hey, just want to let you know we're still here. And that's great, because I may have something going on. Many times that's happened. I forgot about this caterer, or I forgot about this entertainment company, or I forgot, because there's so many, we're just bombarded with so many, and it's great being top of mind. So maybe let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Top of mind is it's beyond important.
It's super important. Yeah.
Right? And folks, you might hear the word TOMA, right? Because that's what people call top of mind awareness. And being top of mind, see, there's a certain percentage of people who are ready to buy right now, but there's a certain amount of people, they're not sure they want to buy right now.
Yeah.
And there are certain times, there are conditions preventing that from happening. The pandemic was a good example, right? Now we had to pivot to virtual events. How do we do this? Right? Do we even want to do this as a whoever or whatever organization?
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that happen, like, it didn't happen to me, but my buddy Mike was talking to somebody, and their grandmother died in the middle of the, planning of the wedding.
Oh yeah, I've had that. The father died. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, it's tough. But wedding plans get pushed off.
Yeah.
Right?
We kept going. We did keep going. It was 5 months before the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And her father passed. So you can only imagine. That was then you have to figure out like the whole emotional side. And
sure,
it was something we'd never experienced. So it was a tough one, but we got through it, and she got through it. It wasn't us, it was her getting through it. But yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. And even on the corporate side, they're doing an event, but then another company comes in a merger acquisition and buys the company, and they stop that event for that period of time, right?
Yeah, stuff happens. Yep.
So what most people do is go, oh, well, we're done here, and they move on to something else. But if you stay in touch with that person who actually said yes to you already, they might even be like, okay, in the merger acquisition, I'm moving from company A to company B now, or I'm moving from division A to division B.
Mm-hmm.
But if you didn't stay in touch with that person for the last 6 to 12 months,
mm-hmm.
and just like when I lost that sale in literally 3 days, in the initial, because the competitor was in there building a relationship while I wasn't being, they thought I wasn't paying attention.
Right.
Then that's what will happen to other people. So top of mind awareness is huge to keep not only sales that we would have lost in our pocket, sales that we're going to gain in our pocket, but also relationship capital on both sides of that as well.
Right.
Sometimes, corporations that I work with or whatever, they'll be like, hey, I just need an easy lift. And I'm like, just reach out to 3 to 5 people who are already done business with you a day per person in your sales team. And do you know, when we do this, they get an average minimum bump of 5% in revenue.
Wow.
And because they're staying top of mind aware, Now, it may not even come from that particular client buying again, but it's like, you know what, Doug, I just was contacted by, Charlene, and Charlene has a need for what you do. And I want to introduce you to Charlene because I was top of mind aware with that particular person. They now referred me to someone else.
Right.
And the event business is relationship built. It's trust driven.
It is.
Right? And so why not keep the trust high by keeping the top of mind awareness high on relevant, personal, and meaningful information? And it doesn't have to be slick willy language.
Yeah.
It might be something like, hi, Annette, I was thinking about you, and I realize it's winter time and you're probably back down in Boca. I'm up here in New Hampshire, freezing to death. I hope it's really sunny and warm. Let me know how you're doing, right? Just something like that.
Personal is good. Like, something easy, not too long. Don't do a whole big,
oh no,
you don't need all of that. People their attention span is very short now. So something quick and easy. I think it's great. You've got me inspired to I've just been making notes about companies I want to reach out to right now. So
great.
Definitely have me inspired to do that. So what are some key steps that business professionals should take to develop a systematic follow-up process that ensures every potential lead or opportunity is nurtured effectively?
So, self-servingly, I would say, get our technology and join our training classes, because firstly, we got to get, number one is, it's just like with referrals. So do we have an active program or a passive referral program? Active meaning we know strategically when we're going to ask in the sales process. We have supporting materials. We bring that up right away up front. Mm-hmm. Versus passive, like, oh, we did a good job, and every once in a while somebody asked us, or geez, we remember 3 months later and we asked the person, right? Mm-hmm. So with follow-up, do you have a follow-up culture that you're going to build into everything and make it a daily, just like brushing your teeth? It's going to happen, right? We all know what happens if we don't brush our teeth for 6 months, right? So, and so, that's step number one. Are you going to create a follow-up culture in the expectation that everyone in your company does this? It's just a rule set. Like, this is how we live and breathe. Once that's established, then are we creating an active follow-up process? And so follow-up really comes down to workflow in most cases. So, a lead comes in. What's our 2-step, 3-step follow-up process on and around that? Mm-hmm. Maybe that lead comes in, we enter that into our system, and it shoots off an email and a text message, and then immediately we make a phone call, right? Now, people might go, is that overwhelming? Is that too much? No, not necessarily. Mm-hmm. It shows that you at least got your act together, and that's what people are looking for. Or maybe you don't want a 3-step process. Maybe you just want a 1-step process. Or in the conversation, you ask, what do you prefer as your mode of communication? And you give them the option to do that. And then they say by text, then bam, you send a text message out and you still call, right?
Right.
So we want to create the workflow process. Now, what we did in our system, to be self-promotive here, is we actually pulled data on the particular person. So if they have, like, for example, a LinkedIn profile, with a click of a button, we can enhance all the data fields with everything on their LinkedIn profile. So now when you're looking, you can validate things before you actually send the follow-up out. And you might say, hey, I don't know why in my LinkedIn profile, everybody pays attention to this. I have no idea why until I ask them. They say it's really cool. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston for 1 semester.
That's funny.
1 semester. Now I have degrees in nuclear medicine, business, finance. I got degrees in stuff.
Yeah.
But every person says to me, you went to Berklee College of Music. Wow. So that's something personal and meaningful to me. There's a whole backstory to why I went to Berklee, but the point being is that if you picked up on that and said, hey, and some people have, Doug, I see you went to Berklee College of Music. I'm a guitar player. I think this is cool, right? It starts to make it personalized. And so when you have fields that are coming in and you can look at the data, you can then automate the follow-up to actually pull some of these personalized fields. That's what we're doing in our system, to actually start making it personalized, and you can change all the context. So the rules are the rules: personalized, meaningful, and relevant. And as long as we're staying in touch, I don't care if you do it the way I did it back in the old days. And but I will tell you, if you use sticky notes on a glass board, eventually you'll come in one day and 6 sticky notes have fallen off and you're like, oh, no, where am I in this cycle?
Yeah.
But at least you're moving forward in the follow-up process. And then, so for every action, there needs to be a follow-up reaction. If somebody submitted paperwork to you, an immediate something needs to go to them to say, hey, I appreciate you sending this to us. Congratulations, we're working on this, et cetera. Because then the client goes, okay, they got my back, right? And you're staying top of mind. So think about, they dealt with 2 or 3 other people in the past, and they're not that proactive staying in touch. But you, as the follow-up expert, is proactive staying in touch. And now they got a new event. Who the hell are they going to call?
Right.
They're not going to call the other 2 or 3 people.
You're only as good as your last event, let me tell you. Reputation is everything. So,
So all the way through, even after the event, how you stay in touch with them. What is the process? Do we stay in touch with them every 30 days, for example? Because you could set your system up just to send something out every 30 days that is personalized, meaningful, and relevant.
Right. That's great. That's great. So speaking of that, so how do you balance the use of an automated tool with personalized communication to create a follow-up strategy that feels both efficient and genuine?
Yeah. So that was the biggest challenge we had in designing this, right? Because, and again, using things that are meaningful and relevant to the individual. So nothing beats human to human connection.
Right.
Nothing. Like, we are human beings wired for connection. The day you're born, everybody's like, oh, how cute you are. And they're googly, and they're connecting, right?
Yeah.
You want to connect with your parents and your grandparents and your lineage and your friends, and they're so important. These connections are a human need, right? We want to feel significant. We want to feel valued, loved. These are human needs.
Right.
And so we're not selling, if we're selling to corporations, we're not selling to the event planner of the corporation. That's their title. We're probably selling to Teresa or Robert or whoever, right? Well, Robert has feelings. He's, Robert likes to feel special, just as like Teresa would like to feel special.
Right.
So we want to keep that process going through, always be building a relationship. And I'll go to the extreme, Annette. I have Dwayne, if you're listening to this, every time I call Dwayne, the guy, like, it used to blow my mind. He would be like, I may not talk to him in like 3 years, and he'd pick up the phone and he'd go, hey, Doug, how you doing? I'd say, hey, Dwayne, or he'd call me. Right. He'd go, how's Jacqueline doing in her gymnastics? Is she still pursuing 4th? I know she was 6th in the state of Texas when you first were doing it, when she was 6. She's probably 9 now. Is she, still doing it, or she decided to move on to something different, right? How's Rebecca? How's her ballet going? Is she still looking at boys now because she's getting at that age? And if so, you're probably losing a little bit of your hair, right? I mean, this would be the conversation we'd be having.
That's crazy. That's so good.
It does not matter if it was 12 years from now. Wow. He would have the same dossier that he's kept, right? Contrast that with someone who I haven't talked with in 3 years, and they go, hey, Doug, what's up? Yeah, it's like a totally different conversation, right?
Right.
So follow-up should emulate that process. And the follow-up should feel like it's coming from a friend.
Right.
That if we're Now, not to cross the friendly line. I'm not saying you go so far as you break the sales tension, if you will, that you've got to be the professional. I mean, I don't want my attorney calling me up going, "Hey, how's your, personal medical
Yeah.
condition going on?" Right? I mean, that's like a little icky.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
right. But I certainly don't mind Dwayne calling me up and asking me that. Like I just went through a major operation. I had hip replacement done.
Oh, yes.
Right. And who knew? Right. And I'm skipping around in 3 or 4 days and doing great.
Yeah.
But I've literally had friends call me up and go, "Hey, hop along, Cassidy, how you doing?" Right. And they start the conversation out. It makes me laugh.
Yeah.
So, but I would not expect, if I was buying a major purchase from a corporate environment, for that person who's trying to sell it to me to call me up and go, "Hey, hop along, Cassidy."
Right.
Right. Now, those of you who don't know hop along, Cassidy, it's a really old reference, but the point being is, so we want to have it relevant. I would expect that sales rep, if that's who she or he was, he, she, they was, I would expect that sales rep to say, "Hey, how's it going with the post-recovery surgery?" That's appropriate. And so we want to have that relevancy going on throughout the whole relationship. And, when we do this, even 50% right in it, it just magically brings in better relationships, better sales. And if you ever run into that client, Annette, where it's like they like you, they trust you, they've been burnt before by other event planners, and they're like really wanting to go, but they want these references or they want to talk to people or whatever. I don't know if you've ever run into this. I know I have in business throughout the years. And wouldn't it be nice to say, "Listen, I'll be happy to give you this list as long as I know you're serious about this. Here's 28 people. Just call one of them, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them, right?"
Yeah.
And when they pick up, they go, "Annette, what are you, crazy? What are you thinking about something else? She's amazing. Let me tell you how she saved my backside on this thing and blah, blah, blah. Oh, you know what? She's the most communicative person I've ever worked with." Second call, right? Third call goes, "You know what? She stayed in touch with me for the last 4 years. No one else has." Like,
Right.
they're not going to call anymore on that list. It's done.
Right.
That's all because you built the relationship, staying in touch with follow-up.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I had to build a relationship 4 or 5 years before they even hired us as for an event.
Absolutely.
Happened. And then they hired us for many events. And to this day, one of the women that I'm speaking of, she, is one of my top, she refers me for other business and gives me that same thing, same referral. So it's great. It's really building relationships. Obviously, most of my business is referral based, as most events. That's why I tell all of my wedding and event planners that I'm coaching is you got to get out there and network. I mean, I networked like a maniac when I first started my business. I don't so much anymore because I've built that, I do try to network, but it's, I have systems in place now that bring in the work. So it's a little different. And, people just refer us, I have relationships with people. So you keep those relationships going, and half the time I don't even remember how they started, but they're so good. I just have patience. So you can't keep in touch with people. It's a big communication, in the event industry. And then I try to attend events and build relationships with other planners, because that's important. Sometimes they'll refer you to a client. They can't manage the event because they have so much going on. They'll refer you. They trust you. I've gotten work many times that way. So it's a really good thing.
You bring up a really good point, networking, right?
Yep.
I've measured this over the years. Approximately 13.2% of anybody that meets somebody at a networking event will get back in touch with them ever.
Wow.
So think about that. Like, I just went to a Chamber of Commerce event, and people were coming up to me. I knew one of them was I was a previous client of their company.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bank. And so I collected 27 cards. And out of those 27 cards, 3 people followed up with me.
I know we used to talk about back in the day when I would network and I would have a stack of business cards. And I would sit down, put them in a system and write everybody and, just to kind of stay on top. So a lot of people knew who I was because I was constantly following up and being top of mind with them. So yeah, that's a big thing. Like you can't just take the cards, you got to do something with them. Yeah.
The crazy part is that one of the three that got back to me was not the company that I was already doing business with prior to. Yeah. And how easy is it to say yes to a previous relationship that, you've already done business with, you already know, and it was positive, right? So that's why you're extremely successful, is because you do this work.
Yeah.
And you made it a priority.
When I would go to networking events, I very rarely handed out a business card. Very rarely. Like I just wasn't there to hand out business cards. That's not the thing. I was there to make connections, build relationships, and continue to go back so that they remembered me and recognized me. And so I was at a lot of different networking things, which a lot of people go to the same ones in New York. So we would see each other continually. And so I very, very rarely gave out business cards because I hated that whole thing. I mean, I took people's because if I thought in the conversation like there was some sort of connection or I could help them, because helping someone is also a really good way to get your referrals.
Yes.
That's really kind of what it is about. It's like I was on this thing for the longest time when I first started my business, was to help other people, connect other people, because they remember that,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. Okay. So what are some innovative follow-up tactics you've seen that significantly boost the conversation rate and leads into clients?
So multimodality is something that people should always embrace.
And what does that mean exactly?
Multimodality means, in the basic terms, text, phone, video, audio, email, offline cards, even a postcard. Right. When is the last time you got a card?
And I love postcards.
Right?
I love personalized postcards.
Personalized. All this has to be personalized, right?
Yes.
But the multi-modality type process, it's because like when you get a piece of mail now or whatever, especially in the mail. Yeah. I wish I had this in my office. I have it in another office. I was on someone's podcast and they sent me a little package with 2 brownies in it. And they said, "Hey, I remember you saying you like chocolate. I found these brownies and blah, blah, blah." Right? Well, Janice, I remember you forever because that's who he was. Right. And so, something like that. Okay. Cost her a few dollars to send it, probably $10, right? Yeah. But I'm already thinking about how do I incorporate her into one of our next events, or how do I, refer her or things like that. So you got to be different in a positive way. Right. Right. We're not talking, again, I'm dating myself, Ozzy Osbourne biting the head off a bird to get, get publicity. Right. We're not talking that shock value. What we're talking about is you've got to stand out differently than other people. And the reality is if you made a phone call, sent a text message, and then sent a direct mail piece, you're already going to stand out because you're doing more than anyone else has done. And then if you continue to keep following up with the relationship, it sways the buyer's intention, because we're trying to lower fear and improve buying confidence in every single interaction we're doing. The more we bring the interaction up, the lower the fear goes. So the buying confidence goes up. I'll give you an example. A realtor is doing this to me right now. So we bought this property that I'm in right now as an investment property, and 3 years ago. And I have an extremely good friend who I bought this off of, who's a real estate agent I have known for 15 years. But over the past, say, 3 years, we haven't been in touch as much as we normally would be. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's just life, right? I know she's busy. It goes by fast. Right. But this other real estate agent has been calling me since month 1 and every 3 months puts a phone call or a direct mail piece to me every 3 months saying, I know you're not ready to sell your home right now, but when you are ready, I want you to understand I'm here and I do care about you because I service your neighborhood and I service the surrounding neighborhoods. And over the last 3 years, we've now started talking about, well, maybe we'll move into a different home. We want to be in a different home. And I'm like, okay, so should I call my longtime friend, or do I give this guy who's been calling me in my space for the last 3 years?
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
literally, that's like I have a 15-year relationship that I'm weighing against something now that's happening because in the last 3 years, I might have talked to my 15-year relationship maybe 3 times, maybe.
Oh. Mm.
Right? So this is how human brains work.
Right. It's a great
Right?
example. Mm-hmm.
And so if you're an event planner, you're a corporate planner, you're doing weddings, and you're not consistently in their space, you're missing out.
Yes, for sure.
Because just like the family that I had 5 daughters for, like, you know, not me, they had 5 daughters that they gave me all the weddings, right? I mean, we were not inexpensive as a DJ. We were getting between $2,000 and $3,000 a wedding back then, which is now probably more like $4,000 a wedding. And you know, we were consistently booked because what was happening is people were saying we had a great time. Not only that, but these people are reliable, stable, they care, they're following up. You know, they recognize who we are.
Right.
Geez, my daughter had a baby, and you know, a letter went out to them saying congratulations on the baby. Who does that, right?
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And that's what you got to do.
right, right. It's really good. So what practical advice would you offer to professionals aiming to refine their follow-up processes, not only to nurture relationships, but also to build and sustain predictable revenue over time?
So test, be aware, test and adjust, right? So you might say, so I have a client who sent this piece out to, he owns 4 or 5 restaurants, excuse me, very well known in the area. I won't say who he is because people will know who he is. But he sent out this message on Christmas, and it was an email, and the title was "Santa is dying."
Oh, geez.
Right?
Yeah.
And then in the message, dying to come to our restaurant because we're running these specials for Christmas. Right?
That's cute. Yeah. It got your attention, right?
Totally got your attention. Well, it got their attention in such a negative way because children were reading this in front of their parents and going, Santa died, oh no, you know, and he was getting hate emails and phone calls and everything else, right? So I said to him, I said, I think it's awesome, right? I think you get attention. It's shock value, right?
Right.
But are you going to do it again? He goes, oh, hell no. We're not doing that again. You know, we got so many upset customers, right? So that's an illustration. Like when you're doing follow-up, are you getting responses back? And are they positive responses? And if so, keep doing those things.
Right.
If you're sending out follow-ups and it's crickets, adjust and split test and send something different, right? And try a different modality. Because what you'll find is you don't need to do amazing, like overboard barraging of messages to people. Most people don't want that. What they're looking for is what is going to be helpful to them in their lives. I'll give you an example. I went up online and I looked at where all the fireworks were going off in July. So easy to find. You take your client's name, you say, here's where they are, fireworks in the area, pulls it up, and you take the URL and you say, okay, insert this into a email at that time I was using. And I sent out and I said, Annette, I don't know, you know, in the Jersey Shore where you're at in July, you know, if you or your husband likes fireworks. However, I found here's where the local fireworks are. And if you like them, great. You know, hope this saves you a little bit of time not having to look up where they are this year.
Yeah.
Right? You might have thought I was like, you know, bringing them $500,000, some of these people.
So thoughtful.
Right?
It's so thoughtful. And you didn't know that it was my birthday. So fireworks are like
Oh,
I live for that because it falls on my birthday. So that's always a fun thing. But that's a bonus that you wouldn't have known. But though just being thoughtful is very it's everything. It's just everything.
I had responses on that. Like, I did not know July 4th was your birthday.
It's the 5th, but it falls.
Okay. See?
It's the same. You can make that no. But
I did.
it falls the night before. It's always celebrated. My father used to call me on the 4th and wish me happy birthday all the time. I think he thought it was the 4th, but so it's a fun time to have a birthday, that's for sure.
And the connection between your dad and yourself, and the fact that somebody's following up around that time makes it far more meaningful.
It is.
And I got responses back from like, hey, this was really thoughtful. I appreciate that, and I got responses back going, Doug, you know what? I didn't even think about this, but my kids are going to want to go.
Yeah.
Like, thank you. So the point being is they remember that. And what we want to do is send things that are meaningful and memorable as much as possible. Let's not think so much about mass volume unless you have this huge list. And it's okay to send out a newsletter, or it's okay to send out something like that. But if you really want to build relationships, you got to get down and personal, meaningful, and relevant.
Right. That's such great advice. I could talk to you about this all day because I am such a stickler for this. My team knows that. And I've made some great notes here about the people I need to follow up with because, so much going on.
Sure.
I'm in my brain. It's a miracle I can even function on a daily basis. But especially as I get older, that's always a problem. But I first of all want to talk about the platform that you have. And then I want to talk about this masterclass that you're doing.
Okay.
So tell me about the platform a little bit more.
Yeah, so the platform's called Vibitno, Vibitno. And I know it's a little bit of a mouthful, but it means in Slavic terms, you matter, you're important. And so that's why we took the name.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find it at vibitno.com. This page is up there. We haven't made it too open to the public yet. It's more invite only at this point. Okay. And so we do a masterclass on and around how do you follow up? What is the purpose and process? We call it the number one sales leak because it is a sales leak in most people's funnels. Mm-hmm. And we go through, why do you do it? How do you do it? What are you supposed to do? And kind of give the mechanics of it in the masterclass. At the end of the masterclass, we offer follow-up training combined with the technology. Mm-hmm. And, we're super generous on what we do because what we're looking for in the technology is feedback as well on the technology to make it better. So, and the ROI is so easy for people to achieve on this because it's like usually less than one sale over the next whatever period of time, right? More than pays for it. So that's the process of what we do. People can find it if they want to. The masterclass is free. It's 90 minutes. And it's at ceosalesstrategies.com/stop the leak. And we did stop the leak because people remember it. So ceosalesstrategies.com/stop the leak.
We'll share that link in the notes so you guys can have that. Great information. I'm actually going to have my team take a look at it. I do want to try to put something in my systems. As planners, we're all about systems. Sure. So I'm very much interested in it myself because I do want to have a follow-up system in place that instead of just my brain remembering to do it, because that's, as I said, that doesn't always work. So I want to make sure I have something in place. So thank you so much. But I do have a little bit of a lightning round question here.
Uh-oh. Okay.
A few questions, just a couple. I'm sure you're going to be great. If you don't mind, I would love to ask you a couple things.
I don't mind. I'm planting my feet for these, so go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. It's actually fun. So who is someone who is inspiring you at the moment and why?
Russ Whitney. Russ Whitney wrote a book called The Inner Voice. I've known Russ for about 8 years now. Uh-huh. And he is one of the most brilliant minds I've ever had regarding business. Every time he speaks, I listen and I'm like, wow, right? I mean, this guy, he's built billions of dollars worth of companies. But that's that person right now is inspiring me to even step my game up a little more.
That's great. That's great. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, this is going to sound funny. Maybe. So I'm 12 years old. I think this was one of the first things. I always remember this. I'm 12 years old, and my mom was, I knew her as an Italian mom. As we talked recently, I found out that my grandfather wasn't my grandfather. So she's this Italian Jewish mom now. And 12 years old. And she was constantly telling me about how to treat a lady. And she's like, Douglas, you ask a woman this, you open the door for her, you ask her how her day is. And, she would really plant these lessons in my mind. Mm-hmm. And one day I was 12, so I'm getting a little bit more toward the teenage years. And she said to me, Douglas, you never, ever ask a woman her age, ever. Right? And I said, that's very interesting, Mom. And I opened the door for my mother. And I said, Mom, I got it. Don't ask her age. Can I ask her how much she weighs?
That's even worse.
and all I felt was the back of her hand hitting the bridge of my nose in between my eyes.
Oh,
she did nothing. It was just like whack, right?
Yeah.
And I and my father was there and my mother was there, and they said to me, Doug, I want you to pay attention to every woman on the planet, because they may not be what you're looking for today, but they will grow into the person you potentially may want later on.
That's amazing.
And that was the best advice that anybody ever could give a 12-year-old kid. And I was always like the respectful young man and all that stuff, but they were right. And it paid off later on in life.
That's awesome. That's funny. That's a cute story. So what's one piece of advice you'd give to wedding and event planners who are just starting out?
You understand the business you're in. So, this is advice for anybody that is in business, right?
Right.
You're not in the event planning and the wedding business. You're in the business of client acquisition. Mm-hmm. Because if you deliver event planning services, you deliver wedding planning services, you deliver all these things. And if you're not learning how to acquire a client and build a relationship like we're talking about, then you're not going to be in business very long. Or if you are, you won't be in business profitably. Yeah. So please understand that the business you're in is got to be client acquisition, and do everything you can, especially in the beginning, to make sure that you bring in clients, because you can usually solve problems with monetary, gain. At least you can arrive at the problems in style. Let's put it that way.
I always say I'm not an event planner, wedding or event planner. I'm a problem solver. I say it all the time because I feel like that's all we do is solve problems. The relationships are, oh boy. I mean, you're dealing with not only the client, but the client's team, all those different personalities.
Sure.
And it's a lot. It's a lot. And you've got a lot of people who are spending a lot of money, who are nervous. And so, it's the emotions are flying. So the relationships, working with the clients is the hardest part. Planning the events, I could do that in my sleep. That's like the easy piece. That makes them nervous because this is not what they do. They're not a professional in that area. Right. But the relationships and personalities it's a lot. It's a lot to manage.
Totally agree. The more you know about the ideal right fit buyer and the supporting influencers in that process, it's a much easier life. And it's not only just for us, but it's also for them.
Yep, for sure. For sure. Doug, such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time. You guys all have to check out his platform, the Vibitno.
Yep.
And the masterclass, which we will share the link in the notes. So thank you so much again for being with us.
Oh, Annette, thanks so much for having me. I'm so grateful.
Yes, I'm glad we got to talk. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us. We'll have another episode coming up shortly. Again, if you're a wedding event planner and you're looking to start your own business or you're struggling, check us out at our Facebook group, Event Planner Society. Would love to have you over there. Lots of great stuff going on. And thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.